Welcome to 909 Exec, your source for wit and wisdom in cybersecurity and beyond. On this podcast, your host, Veteran Chief Security Officer and cyber aficionado Den Jones, taps his vast network to bring you guests, stories, opinions, predictions, and analysis you won't get anywhere else. Join us for 909 Exec episode 44 with Brenda Nelson.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of 909 Exec. I'm Dan Jones, your host, the guy with the Scottish American bastardized accent, but I've got a more confusing accent with my guest in a second. So every episode we try and bring something that helps your executive journey in technology. So this is one of those ones that some people might call it a little woo-woo. So I'm excited by this, because in my lifetime, I've been close to this topic. I love this topic. I'm intrigued by it. And one of the things that we're going to say is, so we're going to talk a little bit about mediumship, spiritualism, and some of those things, which, if you pay attention, people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey and Gwyneth Paltrow and many others, they are very public and have been very public in their use and their partnership with mediums and guides and all sorts of other things. So today I've got an amazing guest, Brenda Nelson, all the way back from my home country of Scotland. So Brenda, welcome to the show. Are you ready to dig into this?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, let's get ready. And I think so. We were talking about this. This is your first podcast, but it's not the first time you've been speaking with normal people and humans and stuff, right? So we're good.
Yeah, we are.
Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about this, right? So I've been involved and been aware of spiritual healing, spiritual mediums, and all this stuff since the early age of about 16, which in Scotland, it's funny because that takes us back to the 80s, I guess, actually, if I date myself. But in Scotland, I was a postman before I done all this stuff. And I remember hurting my back, and the guys in the office, they were like, go see Jean. She'll help. And I went into a little room with this. And now, to preface this, you're talking about guys who are in their 50s, like Scottish guys who are like hardworking men. They drink in the pub every weekend and they don't do shit other than watch football and drink in the pub. And they're the ones who are normally the most skeptical about this kind of topic. And they're like, go see Jean, she'll fix you right up. And I went through to an office with this little lady who's about 5'1", amazing woman. And she says, lie in the ground. And she brings out a string with a stone on the end. And she goes up and down. She doesn't even touch me. She's up you get. And then up I get. And she explains to me what was going on. And then the next day, you'll be fine. And true enough, the next day, what was really like a painfully back problem, the next day was all great. And the technique is called dowsing. And that for me was the first introduction to something that I would be like, oh, that's a bit woo-woo. So
yeah,
I love this topic, as you know, right?
Yeah.
So for people, so first of all, how would you describe yourself? Is it a psychic? Is it a medium? Is it an intuitive? Like how do you describe?
So I describe myself as a psychic spiritual medium, because sometimes I work with my psychic energy. That's where if I was sitting in a room with you, your energy and my energy, I could read that energy, and what's happening in your vibration. So that's where the psychic bit comes in. But as a spiritual medium is where I bring spirit forward as well. So like your loved ones would come forward. So that's how I would describe myself. I do know, like, some people can be psychic mediums, but not everybody can be a spiritual medium. So we do have a difference there.
Okay. And if they said they were a psychic but not spiritual, how would you describe that difference?
So they would be reading you psychically. So it would just be like your energy, what you're giving off.
Yeah.
time. So say in that time you were given off, I'm going to buy a new house, so it's in your vibration, it's in your energy, they would pick that up psychically.
Yeah.
But you could change your mind. So you could change your mind and then, make your own decision with that. So it's only because it's in your psychic energy, that's where the difference would be. But mediums, they then bring in spirit.
Okay. And it's, and most, I think most people, I'd say, are probably more familiar with the whole spiritual side, where it's like I can talk to my passed away loved ones and they come through and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I think when I hear people talk about psychics or mediums, the thing that comes to mind straight away is just like, oh, you're talking to my dead relatives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But,
what is? Sorry, on you.
But all of us have the ability to do it, and probably most of us just work psychically. So you would probably work in your psychic level, knowing that something's not right, or in your job,
Yeah.
your gut would tell you that something's not right and something, or right, go for this is going to be good for me. So that would be you working in your psychic side.
Yeah, I was just about to say this, right? So I've spent a bit of time reading and watching videos from like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and even like Jay Shetty and Deepak Chopra and some of these guys. They all talk about this stuff, and there's a bunch of science coming through now, especially when they talk about like the multiverse, and they talk about different levels of energy, and really there's an energy thing. So when you talk about our soul, there's this energy. When you look in religious texts over the years, they talk about like your chakras and stuff, from one book, and then elsewhere they just talk about how the God is within us and all this stuff. And it's funny because I remember 10 years ago thinking, oh, this is all nonsense. And then over the course of the last probably 5 years, I've spent more time on this, after going through surgery myself and having friends in accidents, people pass away and all that kind of stuff. You kind of start to pay attention to some of it, especially the You Are the Placebo book from Joe Dispenza, and ultimately it's talking about the ability for your body to heal itself just through meditation, and then all the science that goes behind all of this. And the interesting thing, what they done as well, is they were doing like CT scans and looking at your brain and how your brain changes when a psychic is given a reading, like even just that science. So the science is beginning to show that this is real, and the ability to connect is real. And if you don't see it, then you maybe don't believe it. Having been one person that's seen it many times over the years, for me, that's been incredible to kind of, tap into that side of it. And you said something, which is we all have the ability. We just don't know we all have the ability. We don't tap into it. But I think everybody can relate to that. I've got a gut feeling when something's not right or when something's really right. So I think that whole gut feeling, people just don't translate that to being that's from within. That's a different level.
Definitely. Like, when I was a younger lady, teenage, whatever, I used to get really like drawn to, don't do that, don't go down that path, don't go down that path. But I would go down that path to get the slap in the face to make sure that it was working, if that makes sense. Do you know? And it probably took me to about my 30s before I was really like back connected and thinking, right, stop doing this.
Yeah.
Listen to your gut, and you're right. People just, but I think, see, nowadays, I think more and more people are starting to listen to that gut instinct.
Yeah. When was the first time you recognized that you had this gift?
So when I was just young. I remember, so I must have been about 7 or 8, and I came down, I'd got up in the morning and I had came down the stairs and I says to my dad, the man at the end, I can't remember his name, he's died. And my dad was like, don't talk nonsense. I was like, I'm telling you, he's died. So, we go to school, go about our business and whatever, and when we came in, my dad was like, come here. He's like, he has died. How did you know that? And I was like, because I just know, because they told me. And my dad was terrified of it. So he was like, oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
So, but apparently if I was 2, I used to say, the lady came to visit me last night, and my mum would be like, who's the lady? And I was like, she tucked me in, she read me a story, and it was, I think she said it was about 6 weeks later, we were looking through the photo album, and I went, that's the lady. And it was her mum, my gran. She had died when I was 6 weeks old, but she kept coming to visit.
Wow.
So, but my first memory is probably about 7, 8.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of documented evidence on this one, which is children and animals have the ability to see spirits. And what happens is when you're a child, we're like, oh, who's your friend, right? It's like, and then you end up kind of dismissing it as the parent or the adult, and then over the course of time, the children don't see it any longer. They, I'd almost say like it gets beat out of them, right? But the reality is it kind of does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. I think I was about 13 when my mum shut mine down. My dad was so terrified. He's like, nope, nope, nope. And it kind of, so I was about 13, maybe, when I, but yeah.
And then when did it come back? When and how did it come back?
So it probably never all went away. I used to get feelings, there's something not right, but I wouldn't. My daughter, my first daughter, she was ill. She was about 10-month old, and she was ill. She was getting all these tests, and me and my partner at that time were standing at our cot. But it was so weird because he doesn't believe, and even now he'll say that he doesn't believe.
Yeah.
But I felt like my gran was standing in the middle of us, and we were waiting on tests coming back. So I was only about 22. We were waiting on tests coming back, and I just heard, everything's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. And I actually said to my partner at the time, I went, can you feel that? And he went, yeah. But he still wouldn't recognise that.
He still wouldn't.
So probably, and then I went through a big breakup with him, and it was just like a light had came on. I think because I was in so much turmoil, that's when it came back. I was about 26, 27 when it fully came back.
Brilliant. Right, we're going to pause for a quick message and we'll be right back. Hey folks, just want to take a minute to say thanks for listening to the show, watching the show, or however you engage with us. If you're liking the conversations, if you think we're adding some value, we'd love you to like, subscribe, and share the show with your friends. If you know of anyone else that would benefit, ideally for us, that will help us be able to grow the show, invest more in the quality, get some more exciting guests, and keep bringing you some executive goodness. Thanks, everybody. Take it easy and enjoy the rest of the discussion. So Brenda, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think of it like, if we all have the ability, then it's all about us tuning it, meditating, nurturing, and like any skill, really. And I think it's also about us being open to it. So when you were in your early 20s and it comes back, what did you then do? Like, how did you then say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to do something with this. I'm going to what was the next step in your evolution before you really became like a a practicing medium or psychic or whatever, right?
So I was really lucky. I started going to spiritual church. I thought, I'm going to spiritual church. And when I went to the spiritualist church, it was like I was getting loads of messages saying you should be up here working, you should be doing this, blah, blah, blah. And I was really lucky because a famous medium here, Maureen Nicol, she took me under her wing, and I ended up going into circles. So that's then I had good structure in learning, so that obviously, because you have to be very careful when you're doing that with people's emotions as well, because most people that come, it's because they're in turmoil.
Yeah. So why don't you share, kind of walk me through what a typical session looks like? So maybe start with the why do they turn up, and then what does a typical session look like?
For circle.
I would say, yeah, let's start with what the circle thing is and what that looks like, and then let's talk about like an individual reading next.
Right, okay. So for me, my circle was to teach us to feel spirit coming in, to find out like this is my female side, this is my male side, to connect with your workers. So it would be, a lot of meditation, a lot of asking questions, then like bringing angels in. Most of all, keeping you safe, grounding and protecting yourself. That's what my circle was mainly about. And I don't know, it's amazing when you get into it all, because there is so much information that you can just, but that was the main lessons that I took for that, learning how to work with my spirit team, because we all have a spirit team. So getting to know my guides, getting to know what guide it was that was coming forward, getting to know if it was a female, getting to know so even down to, so if they came in here for me, that would be a mother. If my hand would go here, that would be a grandmother, and then we would go out. So it was kind of getting taught all the kind of things.
Yeah. And when spirit comes through to you, and by the way, there's about 5 things you mentioned there that I'd love to just dig into for a second. But when spirit comes into you, do you hear spirit? Do you see spirit? Does it a feeling? Like, what is that?
So I feel spirit. So I feel what they bring in. I used to hear and I used to see, but I think as we go on in our journey, we kind of go with the feeling. So I feel spirit. So say for instance, we'll just say it was your mum. I know your mum's still here, but say I had your mum. Okay, so if your mum came forward for me, I'd be like, I've got your mum here. So she would give me that motherly feeling. I'd be like, she was very motherly. She's bringing a lot of love in for you. It's really hard to see if you're not.
Yeah.
So it's all the kind of things like they would bring. So I would feel that. I would feel like I have asked for them to bring the volume back again, but sometimes they'll try and tune my ears, but it is just all on feeling.
And one of the things you mentioned was about spirit guides and angels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So for those curious, we all have spirit guides. We all have a team of angels, and
Yep.
some more than others. What would you say to people, like when I hear my gut feeling, when I feel that thing, sometimes is it my subconsciousness, or is it my spirit guide, or is it my angels, or how would you describe that to people?
So how I would describe it to people is it's very different, and it is very different for everybody. So because for me, when your spirit guides come in, it's like working with them and saying, right, show me your calling card. That's what it's kind of called, your calling card. So I would know that I've got a nun that works with me, but I've also got an Indian, and I can feel him at the moment. So he comes in and he's very strong as he's coming in. Whereas if it was the nun that came in for me, she's very gentle. So your team that would be working with you would be more pushing you, whereas your angels are more gentle. So sometimes you have to just feel a little bit more to feel them, but they would gently maneuver you. Whereas your spirit team, if there's something no right, like you say, your gut instinct. So I would say that's more your spirit team saying, right, come on, Dan, there's something no right here. We need to be moving to this.
Yeah.
That's more your team that look after you. Although your angels protect you as well, but your team will more push you forward, whereas your angels will kind of just go along with you and they will maneuver you gently.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I watch there's a podcast called Next Level Soul that I watch every now and again, and then they have a whole bunch of people from NDEs to all sorts, and they talk about things like a soul contract. They talk about things like angels coming down. They talk about reincarnation. So that, I mean, there's a wide variety, and this guy's been doing this podcast for like, I don't know, I think it's like a decade or some shit like that. I get always intrigued when someone's like, oh, I had like a ascended master or an archangel or what, like these are meant to be like the cream of the crop of the ones in the spirit world. So for you, like, I mean, do you get people like that coming through? Of you, I mean, when you think about the ones that you're working with, who do you think is the most probably inspiring spirit or angel or whatever?
So I always ask to work with Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael, and I think that's just been because of my healing journey. So I always call on them, and I have actually seen Archangel Michael. He is massive, but he works with every. He would work with you if you asked. We have to ask. Do you know, like, I do Reiki, and I always ask them to come in to help to heal. And see the amount of people after I've done healing, when I move from their head area, they'll say to me, when you were at my heart area, I could still feel lots of energy and heat coming at my head. And I'm like, yeah, that's Archangel Michael. So people have to remember that we have to also ask Spirit to help us and ask the angels to help us, because we have free will. So they can't interfere with that as such.
Yeah. You've got to, it's almost like you've got to make the time for them to engage and be pretty clear on that one, right?
Yeah.
And for me, again, go back to my experiences, my mom was a registered spiritual healer in Scotland for many years. And I remember I'd hurt my shoulder and she went to give me a healing, and I'm on a little stool and her hands are like this on my shoulders, and I could feel her pulling me back to a point where if it wasn't for her hands, I'd have fallen off the stool. And I made the mistake of opening my eyes and I just saw her hands out like this.
Yes.
She wasn't touching me and I could feel her still there. And I'm like, holy shit. And I mean, I shit myself. I closed my eyes again and I'm like, okay, well, it's my mom. So, I trust mom, right? She's not going to hurt me. So I knew I was safe, but I also knew I was like, oh, that's freaky. And then when I spoke to my mom afterwards, she had said to me that, that was her spirit guide that was there helping. And it's fascinating because you kind of need to, I think a lot of people in the world, they are skeptics until they see it. And then when they see it, then they can believe it. So there's a lot of people that they just don't believe shit until they see it. And that's perfectly normal, actually. But as science evolves, then especially in the space of quantum, right? We didn't know things, and you're sitting there thinking Einstein's theory of relativity is great, and then quantum physics starts to say, well, wait a minute, there's more than this. There's way more. So I want to dig into skeptics, right? So I do have a good friend in a three-letter agency who basically says to me, I don't believe in any of it really, or his challenge was he was pulled into so many cases over the years in the US where people have been swindled out of a lot of money in the name of, I'm going to get a reading from a psychic. And usually, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes people come to you because they're in turmoil or despair. And that's an easy time to exploit money from people. So when you think of the skeptics out there, how would you help people think about this if they are skeptical about it, the topic?
So I've actually had a few young men come in recently who they're in a wee bit of turmoil, but they do not believe, and they've came because their partners have kind of basically made them come. So, but I'm just kind of I'm a bit like you. I'm down to earth, so I can't make anybody believe that this is true. But what I do is say, please just let me give you the evidence, because your loved one will bring forward that evidence. And 9 times out of 10, it's not just random stuff that comes. I know they bring a lot of random stuff, but a couple of these young men have had good evidence. So I would do it that way. But I would also say to people, trust your own instinct. There'll be times in their lives where their instinct, like we spoke about, where their instinct's telling them no, and they've done it and they've known that they shouldn't do it. Or you'll find people's had deja vu. For me, deja vu is we've already had that conversation in dream state, or we've been there because we astral travel. Do you know? So there's always something that you can. Yeah. You'll always get your skeptics, always. But 9 times out of 10, I just believe that spirit will find a way to give them the evidence that they need, that nobody would know.
Yeah. And I think that for me, when I tell people, when I suggest to people that this is real, I say, a good psychic, a good medium is going to sit there and they're going to share things from your loved ones that that they wouldn't know.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not vague. You see, but I do think as well, some people need to realize there are some mediums that are on their own journey of mediumship. So their ability to be specific or, knock you off your seat with the shit they can tell you isn't as good. But as they go along their journey, they are going to tune it more. They're going to hear more. They'll be better. But a good one for me is where, without knowing you, they can dig up facts and things about your family, your loved ones, your life that's happened already, and therefore that's evidence that that this is real. So by the time they get on to stuff about where you are now and what your future may look like, then you've got more confidence in that information.
Yes.
What would you say is the best practices for clients when they meet a medium? Like I know I've been coached over the years on how to engage so that I don't feed information to someone. So what advice would you give?
So definitely, I always say to people, come opened, have an opened heart, so that medium can link in with you and bring your loved ones forward. But just give no or yes answers. Do not feed your medium. Do not tell your medium anything. I always say to people, don't, because you will get people that say, oh, you're right, wait till, and I always say, please don't tell me. Wait till I've given you your information, and then we can talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
So but I think you have to be opened, because if you go, what's the point in paying that money as well if you're going to go along and you're closed down? You know, so be opened. And I think what people have to remember as well, not every medium is for you. So it's a bit like in life, we don't always connect with people. So you might not connect with that medium, but please don't let that put you off, because you could connect with the next medium.
Yeah.
Do you know, because sometimes, as you say, like a lot of it is soul stuff. And if that's somebody that you wouldn't have had in your life, you know, because you just clash or things like that. So I just think if you've had one bad medium, don't let that put you off. Go back and have an open heart and just be like, do you know what? I'll find the right medium for me, because we don't get on with everybody.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing as well is sometimes don't see one medium, see a few. And what I've done that worked for me personally was, you know, I saw 3 mediums and I correlated. I mean, I pretty much could be like, holy shit, 2 of them both said this, 2 of them both said that. And the other thing I think as well is there are a lot of mediums out there that are happy for you to record the session.
Yes.
And then you can listen to it back, which is really, really useful, I think,
Yes.
as the client. And you and I got connected because you gave my mum a reading.
Yeah.
One of my best friends in Scotland, his mum and my mum are both in spiritual church together.
Yeah.
And he recorded it, and he sent me my mum's reading, and I listened to it. And I was, and you know, as the person listening to his mother's reading, because the readings are personal, right? So really, you don't necessarily want to share that recording. But you know, but my mom was happy for that to be shared and for me to listen to it. And when I listened to it, I was like, holy shit, like you nailed so many things. And I'm like, oh crap. And but then for me as the son, because some of that stuff is hard to hear as well. Some of it is emotional, or a lot of it's emotional, especially if you've gone through some turmoil or grief. So I think the whole recording the thing is good as well. Like, you know, most mediums I think are open to that. What are some red flags when you're choosing a medium?
So if ever I've went to a medium, because obviously we don't get everything for ourselves. I've had a few where I've went and I've thought, oh no, like my instinct, your instinct will tell you. Or see if they start like, oh, I've got your granddad here and they're telling me that you're on the wrong path, or you should be leaving your husband, or see things like that. I'm just like, no, we do not have the right to say that to people.
Yeah.
You know, but I just I go with who I'm drawn to. I listen to my gut and I go who I'm drawn to, because in the past I have had a few where they're probably more psychics than mediums, to be fair.
Yeah.
So they're just picking up on my energy rather than but also sometimes you'll get mediums that'll just they'll just try and make it fit. They'll read your face and they'll try and make it fit.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so this is, and it's maybe an unfair question because I know the circle that you're in. So when I talk about avoiding scammers or inauthentic practices, I mean, in the US, there's a lot of scammers. I'm sure in the UK there are too, right? So when someone's looking for that medium and they're having the conversation before they decide to get a session and pay for the session, what would you say people to avoid scammers? Like, is there any red flags there that like would stand out?
There would be, but I can't actually think, because I just go to people that I know, to be fair. But there is a lot of people that will take people's identity and kid on that they're other people.
Yeah.
Do you know, so it's a bit hard.
So if somebody said they were Sylvia Brown, you should probably not go because she
Yeah.
died a long time ago.
Yeah. But not even just that. I just think like see if they're charging a lot of money as well. I'm a bit like
Yeah.
you know, I know people say know your worth, but I just wouldn't pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
Do you know? Because I just think, well, you're no better than me, but there is a lot of people that, well, I know we've got a medium here that calls himself the soul man. I maybe shouldn't say that. Charges a lot of money, but I covered a lot of his readings because he couldn't get stuff, and I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's fake. He's not fake. Please don't play that bit. But do you know, it's kind of so things like that are red flags for me as well. And when people are, see, I would never message somebody and say, I know somebody that did this. They would message somebody and say, your son is here. It's time for another reading. That's definitely a red flag for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
shouldn't be messaging people. Do you know, like I would never message you and say, oh, then I have your dad here. He's want to speak to you. I would never do that. Like
Yeah.
if your dad came through because it was something important, I would pass that message on to you. I wouldn't be like,
Yeah.
it's time for another reading. Your dad's came for that because
Yeah.
it's important. Do you know? So that's a red flag for me if a medium's doing
Yeah.
that.
And it's funny, I had a reading from somebody in the US a couple of years ago, and they messaged me the next day and like in an email, and they said, oh, from yesterday's conversation, here's something else that came through this morning on my walking meditation, right? And that's exactly what they done. They just said, here's some more information that came through this morning for you. And I was like, oh shit, that's brilliant. And I think it's one thing for me is I just say to people, when you're choosing a medium, maybe leverage referrals. You know, like for me, I was lucky because I could hear my mom's recording.
Yeah.
And that really gave me the confidence that you knew you had a gift and that I was going to spend time wisely, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really good if you can do find out referrals and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of stuff where, there's these little shops around the Bay Area where they have in the windows like all these different people and stuff. And my partner did get a reading off one of these guys that was from the shop window. Vegas shit and expensive, So yeah, you're $250 and at the end of it, all you learned was you've got two daughters. And they're both age 14, and then she doesn't. so, so sometimes that stuff's a bit gnarly.
Yeah. Most of the people I get is through word of mouth, or because like I have my business page and like I'll advertise locally and things, but not very often because most of the people that come to me are through word of mouth.
Yeah. And I think so as we wrap up, right? The bigger picture of all of this stuff is I think, love your take on this. I think that there's more and more scientific evidence that this is real and this is a thing. There's in modern society, I think people are getting more interested in mindfulness and meditation and these things that really help them connect back with nature, back with source, back with their soul. And the whole concept of your gut feeling is something that is, it's almost scientifically proven that there's something more to it. It's not just a stupid thought in your head. I mean, it's funny. I'm in the US, you're back in Scotland. Our cultures are pretty similar, but I think in Scotland it's still there's a little old fashioned people in society still. Where do you see this playing in a modern society?
To be honest, I think more and more people are turning to spiritualism and listening to themselves. Like you say, they're doing more meditation, they're tapping in with themselves, they're getting we all have our own answers if we take the time to tap in, do a little bit of meditation. And I just feel like my deputy head teacher, I work in a school, and she comes to me, she comes looking for me, and she's like, Brenda, what's the moon doing? Because these kids are crazy. Do you know? So for me, people are more and more people are totally getting in touch with their spiritual side. More and more people are looking for something else.
And I think the important thing as well for people to understand is this isn't like a traditional religion like Catholicism or Buddhism or blah, blah. Like if you look across all religions, there's an element of they all follow very similar themes. And when it comes to the spiritualism, when it comes to soul, when it comes to, you could say God, but I think God's a term that, you know, gets confused with a lot of people. So when you think of source or the universe or whatever, it's a case of all religions. Definitely. They all have these same themes that crop up time and time again. So for me, it's not about I don't look at it like when I first got into this more seriously is because my mom got into it when her mom passed away. So she was going to spiritual church, and then she was going to circles. And my best friend Mark and I at the time, we were doing our music shit in our band and everything, but we're like, well, let's make sure Mum's not in a cult. That was our big thing. Let's make sure she's not getting herself wrapped up in some cult because she's an emotionally vulnerable person right now. And then we started going along, and you pay 10 pence for a cup of tea, and that was it. Right, there was no money. There was no like money. There was no financial gain. And for me, I'm like, oh, it really is. There's a lot of meditation going on here. There's, you know, so it's not like if I think of the Catholic Church where it's like gold everywhere. I mean, between gold and pedophiles, right? I'm like, holy shit, you know.
No, really not that.
So I think that's the thing about modern religions. The problem with modern religions is a lot of them are all about the money and the power, and less about it's not about the money. It's really about the fact that there is something more, and how do you tap into that and you know, take advantage of it and learn about it, right? Because we're, from what I've understood, we're here in a journey. So you know, enjoy the journey while you're here. This was really an assignment. And, you know, some people say it's like we're in the Matrix, although the whole beings and AI and stuff, you know, we'll find, I guess we'll find out. So, yeah. So, Brenda, it's always a privilege to talk to you. You know, this is awesome. And as you mentioned, you know, you've got a business page on Facebook. We'll link to that in the show notes. So anybody that wants to get a hold of you, there's a method to reach out. And then also, if people enjoy this conversation, please let us know, because you know, I'm sure Brenda would love to come back on and chat to the Scottish guy whose accent is now not very Scottish, I guess. So Brenda, I appreciate it. Having been someone who's been a client of yours, and you know, I'll be a returning client. You might be a returning guest on the show. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Great conversation. And folks, I recognize for some people this is a little woo-woo and a little out there. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, you may think so, but people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey and all these people, they're all subscribers of all of this. Well, Steve Jobs, I think he might be a little different now, actually, because he passed away, I think, over 10 years ago. So maybe he's doing something else. So guys, thank you very much. Appreciate it. This has been awesome, Brenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 909 Exec. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't miss an episode of your source for wit and wisdom in cybersecurity and beyond.